Hello, this is Sandra Osterberis, and I'm bringing you an update directly from Israel today, the 8th of June, 2020. One of the issues that is being debated intensively now in these last few days here in Israel is the issue of annexation of Judea and Samaria. As you may know, the Trump plan, which was announced at the beginning of the year, called for the possibility of American recognition of Israeli annexation of up to 30% of the area of Judea and Samaria. This 30% would include all of the Jewish communities and all the Jews currently living in Judea and Samaria. That is about just under 500,000 people. Now, for many, many years, we have long witnessed a debate going on both in Israel and around the world between left and right on the issue of Israel's future in Judea and Samaria, with the left consistently holding the position that Israel needs to completely withdraw from all of Judea and Samaria, and the people living there forcibly transferred to other parts of Israel. The right, on the other hand, has put forth various types of solutions, all of which would call for continued Israeli control of the area and the freedom for Jews to live anywhere in Judea and Samaria. Now, of course, there was a significant withdrawal from that position given the unfortunate reality of the Oslo process, which beginning in 1993 transferred huge areas in Judea and Samaria, areas that do not have any Jewish communities. These areas, known as areas A and B, have never been put into a state. A Palestinian state does not exist. It has never existed, and we hope it will never exist. But on the other hand, there is something called the Palestinian Authority, which controls huge areas of Judea and Samaria. However, all roads leading to and from Jewish communities, all Jewish communities, as well as significant other parts of Judea and Samaria, remain in 100% Israeli control today. That is the situation right now. For a number of years now, people on the right have been pushing for upping the status of these areas in Israel's favor, not just controlling or administering the areas, not just giving Jews the right to live in these areas, but to actually extend Israeli sovereignty to these areas, or as some people refer to it, annexing these areas. This, of course, is something that there is one particular issue that is a negative here, that it gives people pause, even on the right, and that is, what do we do with the more than 2 million Palestinian Arabs living in that area? Do we conceive giving them citizenship? What exactly is the plan here? And this is not the time to go into the various options that have been put forward over the years. Right now, I am focusing on the Trump plan. And the Trump plan put forward the opportunity for Israel to annex the parts that have Jewish communities, some of which bigger areas, some of which just the communities themselves, because there are about 15 communities that under this plan will be left as isolated enclaves surrounded by areas that are supposed to be reserved for a possible Palestinian state. And it is on this issue that today there is huge disagreement within the right. There are those on the right, and I would venture to say a majority, who believe that the opportunity to gain American recognition of Israel extending sovereignty over even parts of Judea and Samaria is something we must take advantage of today. We don't know what will happen in November when President Trump is up for re-election. We don't know how long even President Trump will remain loyal to this particular plan as it refers to, or as it applies to, Israel's interests. And therefore, it is very important for us to take advantage of whatever steps we can reasonably do right now. On the other hand, there are those that are saying by annexing this up to 30% of the area for Israel, at the same point we are recognizing that the remaining 70% is being reserved for a Palestinian state. And therefore, by the implied recognition in a Palestinian state that annexation might imply, they are now coming out against even Israel annexing any part of the land. And this is a raging debate going on right now, a debate that I believe is extremely harmful and dangerous. And I want to just take you back for a moment to 1948. David Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister, but Israel doesn't exist yet. It's the very last days of the British mandate. And there is tremendous pressure being put on David Ben-Gurion not to declare a state, because there's great fear that the Arabs will invade, which of course they did, and that Israel would be wiped from the map, and perhaps some kind of arrangement could be made, short of actually declaring a state. On the other hand, there were those who were against accepting the partition plan, because that partition plan, as put forth at the end of 1947, gave Israel a very, very small part of the land of Israel and gave it absolutely indefensible borders. David Ben-Gurion had to make a decision, and he did. He accepted the plan, even though he knew that should the state of Israel be established within those small borders, it would be almost impossible to defend. But he said, let us take what we can now. We are not giving up our claim to the rest. And that is exactly the position that I believe we must take. We must annex whatever we can now, particularly taking advantage of this very small window of opportunity that has been brought before us. Generations will never forgive us if we did not take this opportunity and annex what we can. But at the same time, it is very critical that the government Israel, in annexing this area, makes it very clear that from our perspective, this is a first step. That much depends on what the Palestinians want to do. But if the Palestinians continue in their rejection of the very idea of the existence of a Jewish state, there is no question we will move forward and annex all or part of the rest. There's no question that under the Trump plan, Israel retains security control over the entire area, even if there were to become a Palestinian state, which of course means the state as presented in that plan is not exactly the state as we understand it. These are the issues that are most debated today in Israel. I wanted to share them with you. For more understanding and for further details, please read my News from the Land that I have put out today. Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon.